Hello, hello, welcome ladies and gentlemen to lovely Endgame tonight. Obviously, tonight we are discussing the future of humanity in 2019 and beyond. I would say after quite a chaotic year that is 2018, you know, what we're looking forward to, what is on the horizon. Tonight with our lovely hosts Syke and Poplapo, I'm sure there's much to discuss. Thank you.
Yay!
Thanks, Freeman. You rocked it.
That was awesome.
That was great. Thank you for the introduction.
Yes, welcome everyone. We're gonna be predicting Happy New Year. By the way, this is our first Endgame.
Yay! Happy 2019.
So yay! Yeah, it's been going for a while now. So excited about that and excited how you guys are here and everything. And yeah, we're gonna be talking about 2019 and what we predict. And Freeman, you had an amazing intro, and I like the fact that you pointed out things to look forward to. Of course, as some of you guys know, I'm a little bit pessimistic, so maybe we can also talk about things that it might be not so great in 20. But yeah, the basic idea is to get
sure.
Yeah. But I'm going to be actually taking notes during this about 2019, and like I was thinking, we can kind of like try to figure out as a group like what we think is going to happen in 2019, and then we'll save this, and next year, at the end of next year, we can kind of see how accurate we were.
I like that idea. We did something like that once for our predictions for like 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
But this one seems a little more verifiable, where we can actually check next year to see what happened.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, we can do that kind of like, I guess we can try to figure out if we have people. This is gonna be very like audience, participation, you guys' thoughts, our thoughts. So
yeah,
we'll kind of have different topics that we're bringing up, and if people just want to briefly kind of say like what they think the future is, especially if you're familiar with that area of technology, it'll mostly be technology, but also some other areas. So we have like AI, autonomous cars, space exploration, Internet of Things, nanotechnology, climate change, those kinds of things I think would be good, and we can just kind of make predictions about what we think is going to happen, have discussions, and kind of feel like, try to figure out where we're going over the next year.
Sounds great.
See how wrong we might be.
So like at the end of every topic, should we like get a vote on what we think will happen, or just a consensus
and I'll write it down.
somehow? Okay.
Yeah,
right.
and then we'll have a kind of summary paragraph or something about each one. Yeah.
Okay.
So where do you want to start?
All right. So, well, let's see. Should we start with technology?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe AI, since that seems to be permeating throughout the whole all these different topics. Okay. So
for sure, like AI is like supposedly undergoing. I mean, it is undergoing like a lot of development. Like over the course of the last couple decades, like. I don't know, talking to some of my colleagues, like they've told me that AI had like a heyday in the 90s, and then computing power wasn't quite up to snuff or something, and so like it kind of crashed, but now it's like starting to build back up again. And I know it is because what I'm excited for is more of these little projects. I don't know if you've seen them, but like people, like there are all these neural network technologies that are kind of freely available to everyone. Like I think TensorFlow is one of them, and there's like basically you can go and program your own neural network to achieve things. And so there's like this proliferation of YouTube videos where people will train a neural network to do something interesting or cool. Like I saw one that'll it'll make it play a video game, or it'll make it do lip reading. It was the one I saw recently or whatever. So like you can just I don't know, more and more people are getting access to the technology. So I hope there will be more YouTube videos. That's not much of a prediction. There will be more of those. But
yeah.
I think
but it's with open source.
Get pretty good.
Yeah, creating a more easy access to the tools of AI and things like that. I guess for people, do people think that overall in 2019 that AI is going to play We can like vote on this with a thumbs up or thumbs down, but don't vote yet. But I'll just explain it and then we can decide when to vote. But like, if you think AI in general is going to be overall positive, like it's going to make positive impacts in areas like healthcare and stuff like that, or is it going to have an overall negative impact in terms of like the military, maybe, or those kinds of things being influenced? Like, there's all these concerns about AI, but there's also exciting things. So I guess if you get your emoji out, the thumbs up or thumbs down emoji.
Thumbs up if you think there will be a net positive work in AI, and thumbs down if you think it'll be net negative. Okay, all right. Oh, and we have some neutral, looks like.
Yeah. Does someone from like maybe someone who said positive and someone who said negative or neutral or anything want to?
Yeah. So who said negative? Who wants to talk about their feelings? Yeah. Freeman.
And also, if you have something, you can come to the center of the stage if you guys have something to say. And also, if you have a quick thought, you can use the exclamation point emoji. Just keep using it so that we can see you use it. But...
Kirby, if you'd like to say something, you can line up behind Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Negative is, I mean, for the general, for the, the people who are in the know and the kind of like niche tech, I think, yeah, definitely. But for something that I think for 2019 at least, that everybody can, benefit from, I don't think AI is there yet. I think a couple more years maybe, but right now, like this year coming, I don't think. That's just my opinion.
It's going to take more than just a year, basically. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, that's Kirby.
Hello. It's my second time here. I just wanted to say about that. I do agree. I think it will be a few more years till everything really takes off. But recently there was this thing involved with some beta testers. They were doing a learning AI, and they had to play this game called Qbert, the old game with the guy jumping around the blocks. They kind of let it dabble for about a week, and they found that after a while it had developed like a sequence to find a glitch that no player had ever found previously. Oh my god. And doing that resulted in like an infinite high score. So I was just wondering about the idea of us developing learning AIs that will either develop themselves or develop other AIs, which will kind of sort of prioritize different attributes of our work field and allow us to, as humans, develop our own processes through what they develop to be more efficient and effective at our jobs.
Yeah, I think that's the hope, that like they, that we'll like complement each other, and like they'll find, hopefully maybe they can find glitches in our systems that will show us things maybe about the economy or about
immortality.
I don't know.
The glitch is that we're destroying the glitch is that we're destroying our planet, and the solution will be to delete us. That's it's like, well,
maybe that seems possible.
Ghost, you have a... I saw the explanation point. Did you have a quick...
I foresee in the future of AI, probably this year, is there's going to be a lot of kind of combination of simple AIs. So things that are meant to do simple tasks like that Qbert game, or I don't know, running an automotive plant, stuff like that will start to then be combined together into kind of like what is that thing called? Singularity. Kind of like the beginning of an AI singularity, where it's not fully AI centric at the moment, but all of its parts together, even the one controlling all the parts, will become AI enough that we could pseudo consider an AI, but it's not going to be full AI. So basically a bunch of little tiny workers.
So like a neural network of AIs.
Yes.
Or something like that.
A learning computer.
A computer that learns how to learn.
It's just neural networks all the way down.
Interesting. Rose
okay,
Puffins,
cool.
do you want to go?
Yeah, Rose?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Also, what is a learning computer, maybe? Or you can make...
Oh, I was just quoting Terminator.
Okay.
It's a neural net processor, a learning computer. Anyways, what I wanted to say about progress and negative, but Well, first off, the question was a bit strange. I don't think we can go backwards, obviously. So I'm guessing by negative you mean slower progress. In
Oh,
sense?
I meant like negative effects, like
Oh.
maybe effects that are detrimental to our society or to humanity or to the planet, or that are detrimental
more
rather
clear.
than beneficial. Sorry for
Wow.
the ambiguity.
Yeah. The next thing I was going to say is if we're going to see any progress from, well, not from, but for AI, it's probably going to be from smaller, quieter, not in the spotlight places. Because we've seen companies already try, like Microsoft tried to put a learning AI on Twitter. And we know how that went. It ended terribly.
Yes,
What did I
yeah.
I'm not going to repeat some of the things it said, but that's,
Almost as bad as
think,
fungus.
oh,
No.
Thing is,
got
what
distracted
about,
by
like,
Psych
the,
freaking out there.
Oh.
But I think the blind side, the blind sight
Spot?
of.
Blind spot?
I was gonna say that the scope, what big companies like Microsoft are going to be looking for is going to slow down their progress in trying to figure stuff like this out. They're going to want to make it public. They're going to want to make price off of it. Meanwhile, smaller places that do this out of passion or to see progress are probably going to be, even though they have less of a fund, are probably going to have the biggest progress in this.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think I love your point just about the low-level, non-noticeable ways that AI will affect us. Because another example is Uber. I think that, like for example, Uber transitioned from you would pay per mile and per minute. I know this because I drove for Uber for like 3 years, so I noticed that they changed this. Is that they went from your ride will be how much you pay for the ride will be based on the per minute and per mile, to now there's an upfront cost that they're using AI to, and their surge is all based on that too, to actually decide like how much you're going to pay or predict how much you're willing to pay. So that's affecting our lives in a way similar to what you're saying, is that it's not these direct Twitter examples or something, but it's like these systems that are affecting the way that we experience the world.
I kind of like your idea of like the smaller groups developing AI. It reminds me of kind of the video game industry right now, because right now there are big names in video games, but the ones that are really driving innovations in games and new game ideas and new directions for games are almost universally like smaller studios. They come up with the ideas. They can take risks better than a big company can, and so in the video game industry, at least that's seen a lot. So I kind of hope that will be true in the AI industry as resources grow too.
Alrighty.
Interesting.
Great.
Yeah.
Also,
Thanks,
speaking of video game industries, if you've seen EA stock, it's beautiful.
Seen what?
Seen A stock?
EA stock?
EA. Oh, EA. The game.
Activision, everyone.
Okay.
What's going on?
Cool.
All right, Catapult.
Hey guys. I don't know. Looking at 2018, all the weird stuff that's been going on in the world, our politicians are letting us down. They're doing some really weird stuff. So I'm slowly starting to believe that artificial intelligence is a lot better than genuine stupidity.
For governance. Yeah. Yes.
I like that. The artificial intelligence, they could be the voice of the people.
For governance. That's a great, yeah.
Well, somebody has to be.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's just the people.
Sure ain't the politicians.
Playing their games.
And we've seen that.
You just got to look at what's happening in France with these mass riots. The people are just fed up with their government, and they're just, I can see that being a wave of the future, a revolution.
Yes, and also and we watched. We do these documentary Saturdays sometimes, and when we did the Century of Self, it's actually it's kind of similar in that the people like the AI is already being the politicians and stuff like that are using polling a lot with trying to figure out like what messages to send. So it's almost like a feedback loop where they're collecting data and trying to decide what messages to send and how to say it. So it's interesting because we like what would AI look like and how would you actually measure, how would you determine what the variables are of what would help people and be best for them or whatever, and how would that look compared to like polling what to say and all that kind of stuff. So
Right, because that can really skew. I've read stuff on that where like doing polls really skews things towards like special interest groups, and then like it's very like the proportion of it, like it's, I don't know, it's just very narrow, and it's not a good method for determining what a group of people want. And there are potentially other methods that could be used. PK.
Hey, so we're still in technology, right? So I'm going to go and predict that maybe this year is the time we'll finally see some real competitor for Facebook. There used to be, it's untenable. Like they're just really awful, and it's becoming a worse service all the time. Even though in some parts of the world they're basically the internet, but in the West at least, I think like there used to be more competitors, and people tried to go to a few of them. But nothing scales. And I just have to assume Facebook has bought off some competitors, because otherwise you would have seen some sort of competition. But I'm going to say, well, yeah, there are. I mean, they own it and WhatsApp. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like the kind of thing where you can go and post stuff and your friends will see it. Like the problem is that these networks are way more effective if you have everybody on it. But once you have everybody on it, you have all these issues.
Yeah, that is the problem with that.
But I mean, I just think as soon as there's one decent scalable competitor, I think there's just a lot of motivation for a large group of people to make the switch. So I'm going to say there's at least by the end of the year, we'll have maybe some competitor. I mean, they might not win.
Let's take a vote on. I'm curious. I think I'm curious of what people say. Thumbs up if you think Facebook will have a major competitor in 2019 that will emerge.
Yeah.
It comes down if you don't.
I did.
Comes down if you don't.
Thank you.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know.
I mean, Discord. For a lot of things, it seems like Discord can make a run for it, for the chatting, for the groups. It is already replacing some of Facebook's, and there's all these fractured elements, but there needs to be. It's not covering all the bases.
Yeah, and that would be the thing.
And also,
I apologize last week.
Just to let you guys know, we do have some other. An AI, I think, is a really good overarching one. So we can take these you guys' two comments, and then we'll move to maybe like autonomous cars or something, where we have space exploration topic. And hypertectonic. These are great comments too.
I did have a comment on you were talking about AI and game development. I don't know if people know, but the game engines have started to add a lot of features to make it easy to use some sort of AI processes for like evolutionary, like using machine learning for whatever. So maybe we will start seeing AI non-player characters that are actually learning from the environment. And I think that's really interesting. Cool. Well, like a lot of people sometimes talk about AI, like disembodied AI, but having an AI that actually has an avatar and that you can interact with. That's at least to me.
I want to see that in VRChat. Like VR seems like the perfect environment for artificial intelligence, and I
hope
AR
as well. There's a lot of AR stuff.
At least with a research project, it would be really nice, and probably will happen this year.
I like that. Yeah,
Thanks,
we'll be able to summon a bot into VRChat that'll be automated. That'll be great.
Ooh, that's scary, man.
I know. Yes.
Yeah, but picking up on what PK was saying, like, I mean, with all this, like, where, at the end of the day, all the big companies just want our information, and their best bet is using AI, So I think, a lot of my friends now, a bit of the older generation, my friends are, like, they're trying to get into Facebook and all that, but at the end of the day, they're saying, when I help them, they're saying, no, we don't. There's no point now, because all they want is to just be able to say hello to each other. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not even that old. I'm 30 years old, but I'm getting to the point where I'm sick of Facebook and all the other stuff, all that stuff. So, I'm interested to, know what other people think about all this social media and all this like thing where everyone seems to want to broadcast their lives to the world. I just think, personally, I think it's ridiculous. That's just my opinion.
Well, also we're seeing with VR now. What I love about social VR is that basically we're almost taking back virtual socialization, or what it means to actually socialize through technology, because before AI was able to strongly, like, you think you're sharing things to the world or to all your friends, but really Facebook's deciding what friends see the information that you're sharing, so they can manipulate a lot of different things. So it's but this is more direct. Although I think one negative with the AI is going to be like Vive, HTC, just, CES is happening. I'm sure like everyone in this room knows, or most people, that HTC released their Vive Eye or whatever, that's going to be eye tracking, and everyone talks about foveated rendering, which is exciting. But what's scary to me is the AI, applying things like AI eye tracking and what people are paying attention to. You'll be able to diagnose mental health conditions. You'll be able to infer a whole bunch of things about people just by tracking where they're looking in the environment. So that's, so it'll be the social media shift will be interesting to see.
Yeah. There's just in general, it's sort of off topic, but I kind of wanted to bring it up. Like, I was visiting my family for the weekend, and so this is about how technology and privacy, you get less and less privacy as technology increases. I was at my family's for the holidays, and I saw a piece of mail that was from their power company, and it said, "Here is here's what the percentages of your power, of the power that's being used by your household. These are the devices that are using it, that is using this power. So like such and such percent is being used by television, such and such percent is being used by your refrigerator, such and such percent is being used by your internet router." So like all these different percentages, and I was like, how are they getting this information? I looked it up online, and they said that they framed it in very, very positive language about how they're providing a service, but basically their meters have the technology to kind of measure the frequency fingerprint, I guess, of different devices as they pull power from the house. And so they take the frequency and the usage and everything, and they extract information about what's actually going on inside the house. And they can just do that because they own the meters, and so they can basically, like, that information, they feel that it belongs to them, and so that they can just go ahead and just peer into people's houses and see what devices are using what power drain, and then, like, everybody's on the power grid. You can't opt out of the power grid. That's not something you can do. And so that's it's just an example of kind of the difficulties of the technology. So like the eye tracking thing reminded me of it, because if they own the headset, well, do they own the information that comes from where you look in the headset too? So I don't.
And that's the difference between HTC and
privacy.
Privacy. Privacy.
That's it. That's it.
That's I think we're losing. I think 2000. That's what you're bringing up in terms of privacy and stuff. I think 2019 is going to be a year that we're seeing more biometric data collected. More people are using services like 23andMe, where your entire genome is able to be sold to companies, and including health insurance companies and things like that. Yeah.
And they just sold a bunch of their data, didn't they?
23andMe. Yeah, I mean and I just saw also a new health service that's coming to DC that basically has, as a feature, they have 23andMe built into their health service, so you can like get your genomic testing, and they can help you figure out what's all this stuff. But so it's like these kinds of things. But sorry, what were you gonna?
It's so problematic. Just I don't know. It's scary. And at the same time, I mean, people's awareness about privacy is growing. Like in the 90s and the early 2000s, no one really thought about it. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't enforced in any way by the layperson. At least now the layperson is sort of educated on their privacy rights violations, even if they can't necessarily do anything about it. So
learning quick enough to keep up with the invasion.
Yeah. It might not be happening fast enough. Right.
Well, I'll
Well,
say
the
loss
scary
of
thing is
privacy
it's
as
the kids. I mean, they grow
yes.
up in this world where they just think
Yeah.
it's normal to share everything about your life online.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, or use iPad. Also, another. This is a little bit deviation, but this is just a PSA, I guess, is that I think iPads and other screens, as kids are using them more and more, are much more likely to cause ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because they're basically constantly getting new stimuli as their brains are developing. So instead of learning to regulate your emotion in the real world, they're kind of constantly getting new stimuli and things like that, especially in situations where they're upset or whatever. If a parent gives them an iPad, so we're going to see, I think, an impact of that, but not in 2019 necessarily specifically, but
yeah, I guess that maybe that one's coming.
yeah.
But like that's going to be a universal thing then, because screens are everywhere, devices are everywhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I know. Well, that's the thing. I know. Well, it's almost like they're attached to it as much as they are to like a parent. Like taking the parent away a little bit, like the protest that happens.
Even today, you ask a child, can they like even read a map? Maybe, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Even today, a lot of us take for granted GPS. Like.
Yeah.
What if
I
they want
GPS?
What if it's just.
Sorry, we did get a little off topic though, and we wanted to move on to the topic of, it's kind of adjacent to AI, but I guess autonomous cars. So last year, let's see, was it 2018 in which I think Uber had their big fiasco, right?
Yes, they killed someone.
Their autonomous car killed someone. And so that seems like a setback, but is it going to be a setback? What's going to happen in 2019 as far as autonomous driving? I rode in a Tesla for the first time recently, and that was exciting.
Yes,
and is it everything you wished it was?
It was. I
haven't been to one yet.
I wouldn't. I don't feel the need to purchase one, but it certainly was a high-tech gadget. I will say that. There were everything in the car. There's no dashboard in the Tesla I was in. It's just a tablet in the center of the the front. Yeah, so like all of your speed and all of your car information. Basically, the car is a computer, and it has some wheels attached to it, and some seats. And so like that's also how you interface with it as well. You interface with it like it's a computer.
And a couple
so
people died as well in Teslas, I think.
I've heard of that too, from because those aren't fully autonomous. Right? They're just they assist. They have driving assistance or whatever.
But I think that's what we're seeing too in the 2019 models is implementation of some self-driving features like lane assistance, dynamic cruise control, all those kinds of things. Larissa. Hello.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So about that, I think that it's inevitable that as we rely more on automated vehicles, that there are always going to be fatalities, and it's like we have to come to terms with the fact that AI is going to cause human deaths, but we have to weigh that against how many deaths are being caused by human drivers versus how many deaths are being caused by. So like right now, it's really weird because there's a lot of bad press that goes on with like Tesla when they have one accident and they don't realize how many people they have saved. So it's just like
there's no measurement for that. Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be an eternal problem going forward until, as a society, we realize that we are going to give control of our lives to these AI, and it's just going to have to be a normal thing.
Interesting.
Well, thank you. Right, Catapult?
Yeah, it's kind of like a mix between the first topic and the second topic, like the autonomous part, the car knowing to stay between the lines and not hitting anything ahead of you and all that. And then the AI part, they'll have to come up with situations where, okay, either I hit that pedestrian or I rear end that car. Which choice do I make? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's going to be a big stickler for autonomous when everything goes autonomous is insurance. I'm not driving the car. Why do I get sued? The car company, their car screwed up. They're the ones that should be getting sued,
You're not going to own a car.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
And also,
basically. theoretically, if insurance has to cover even every single person's accident or whatever, they'll probably still have to pay for less accidents, or maybe the insurance industry would have to go out of business or something. I don't know. I mean, like in terms of, the Google would have an insurance policy, but you might not need to have one.
Yeah, maybe that seems like a possibility that would shift to whoever owns the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure. Rose?
Well, you really got me thinking when you said that the car was pretty much just a computer, and that I know that every few years, like maybe every 5 years, a computer is considered obsolete, that it has a better version of it, or the computer encounters slowdown or just wear and tear of its inner components. Do you think that that's a worry, that this car, which you described as essentially a computer, could run into some problems we have with our desktops or our tablets or anything like that? That could result in something terrible.
Viruses are definitely a threat. Hacking, it opens it up. So I think probably you can get with the turnover of how fast computers not evolve, kind of, but like how much more sophisticated they get, advance year after year. You could be driving a car that's 2 years out of date, and so you're in a place where you're really, really unsafe, maybe compared to everybody else. And I don't know, that seems like, that definitely seems like it would be involved. So then either you have to buy a new car every year, like a phone. You what?
The updates, the software updates would probably be automated. I bet it wouldn't be likely you could choose to take them or not. Sorry?
Hardware, though.
Oh, the hardware, yeah.
Yeah, the hardware is what we're
surveillance.
There could also be the people
who
just decide to just drive themselves instead as well.
And then maybe eventually... And maybe eventually it'll be decided that they're putting people in danger. And
their insurance is going to be really expensive.
Their insurance. Oh my God, their insurance will price them out of being able to do that.
Oh
That's
man,
exactly what's going to happen.
And then there's a personal freedoms issue there.
Exactly.
Here's another thing.
Say, you're not allowed to drive your own cars anymore.
Yeah.
Well, eventually we will get there.
This whole massive topic here,
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do people
versus
think?
self-regulation,
I had one more comment.
There's a lot of stuff about autonomous cars that if everything is becoming a service now, because technology changes so fast. If you buy something, it's sometimes not worth it to buy it and then discard it again. So you just subscribe to something. So I think car ownership will definitely go down. So in the end, you will be subscribing to Uber subscription, and you can have a car transportation service when you need it. So all the insurance does not fall on you, but at the same time, like you're saying, there's this whole issue of I don't control my transportation anymore. So there's this problem.
Real quick.
Interesting. Yes.
Real quick, Rose had something to say, and was being very patient. What, Rose?
I was gonna say something along the lines of even if we do take the wheel back up, I've driven two kinds of cars. A car with more mechanical functions, as in the gears turn, the brakes are physical, hard brakes where something jams into another thing to stop the wheels, that kind of thing. And I've also driven in cars that do that stuff more electrically. It's less sound, it's less grind, it's less force back against your foot. And I would assume that even if you took up the wheel, there would be so many interwoven mechanics with the computer that if your computer started messing up, it could mess up you driving yourself.
Yeah, and already cars that can do that. Already there's ways that you can hack even cars that have only limited technology that aren't self-driving. Okay, so AI.
Hacking is
cars,
such an issue.
So I guess cars, autonomous cars, we're not clear, I guess, exactly in 2019 I think Lexus is releasing a self-driving car. Tesla will update their self-driving features, things like that. But it sounds like we're still feeling that self-driving, completely autonomous cars where you really don't have a steering wheel in them. I think it sounds like we're in agreement that 2019 is not the year that those will
Well,
that
let's
gonna be.
vote.
Let's
So,
vote.
so
Yeah,
how many of you think there might be a commercially available autonomous self-driving
fully
car in
autonomous.
2019? Fully autonomous.
Thumbs up or thumbs down.
Thumbs up or thumbs down. I don't think it might happen.
I think it's going to be a
Okay.
slow,
Okay.
gradual process. Every year, a little bit more will be automated until people. It'll just be a small
Yeah.
step. That's my guess.
Okay.
Maybe so.
Assimilation, slow assimilation. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
It would be
how
a
long
even know it's
until someone
happening,
hacks
you know?
one
We
and
don't
starts
even
using
know
an
it's
Xbox
happening.
controller to drive it?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Well,
Starts
that'll
driving your-
probably be feasible.
Oh my god, that could be like they take over your autonomous
Slow
car. It's like
death.
that movie about the bus with the bomb in it that had to drive a certain,
Yeah.
but like they take over your
I love that
car.
movie.
They yeah,
movie.
yeah, speed.
Speed.
They take over your
Was it
car and then they
But
say we're gonna
hacking.
crash your. Yeah, they're gonna be like, we're gonna crash your car unless you send us 100 Bitcoin or whatever. You know,
man.
they're gonna have you. They're gonna be driving on the
Who's that?
highway. You're gonna be like stuck in the
Oh.
car, like. Yeah, that
Predictions
needs
for
to be the next.
2025, maybe. Like,
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
won't be far
Oh my
off
God.
once it happens.
Oh. Okay, so I want us to get to. I'm very interested in. So we have space exploration, which I think is maybe we
Yeah.
can go there next, and I also want to talk about climate change as well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so maybe space exploration might not be a huge discussion because there's really only like a handful of actors in that space, right? Like there's SpaceX and then NASA. I haven't. There's probably stuff going on internationally that I haven't heard about. But like SpaceX, I have a coworker who's really excited about it, but he like talks about how SpaceX has made these reproducible or reusable rocket engines, and because it's made those, all the potential companies that were making rockets that weren't reusable, like they're just basically going out of business because they can't compete with the technology that contributes to having reusable rockets. And so my understanding is that this is enabling much cheaper space travel. And so I've heard a couple things. There's I don't know if it's happened yet, but like there's commercial flights to space, or there's going to be soon. And there is a group that's planning to send people to Mars in like 2020. I think they're supposed to leave.
Are they coming
Anyway, so
back?
that's my.
Are they still going?
I don't know. But yeah, I think
that's not going to
still
happen.
going down.
Bernie, did you have a?
Yeah. For no fair amount about this area. So there's SpaceX, of course. There's also a company called Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' company, and they're kind of competing with each other, and they're both doing reusable launch vehicles, which brings the cost way down. And the group you're thinking of that's thinking of going to Mars, well, Elon Musk has that as a long-term goal for SpaceX, is to be able to actually send humans to Mars. And this year he's going to be testing the first stage of his Mars launch vehicle. So it's moving pretty quickly.
Oh man.
Mars launch
that's-
vehicle?
Wow. They're sending people to
Yeah,
That
he's
sounds
just,
exciting.
it's basically a very large two-stage vehicle, and they're starting to test the first stage this year. He's hoping to have actual launches in the next few years. So we'll see if he does it or not. But yeah, as for so far, they're on track.
Wow.
So are those going to be manned vehicles? There's going to be people in
Yeah.
them?
Oh yeah. That's the idea.
Okay.
Yep.
Ooh,
Wow.
that would be exciting.
Is that rocket bigger than Titan? Is that the biggest ever or not quite? I forget.
It will be the biggest active launch vehicle for sure. I'm not sure how it compares to like the Saturn
Saturn?
V of the old days, but it's certainly the biggest one by far that will be in the world today.
And so, Ghoster, I saw you had a quick comment, and I also, Bernie, I'm curious if you have. I'm curious what your general predictions are for space. Since clearly you have a background knowledge in this. But Ghoster, first, did you have a response to what he was saying? Okay.
Oh, sure. So I'm pretty optimistic. I think the space age is back again, much in the way that VR had a heyday a number of years ago, and now it's back again. I think and AI as well had a heyday back in the 70s, and now it's back again. I think the space program is back on track. We're seeing private companies doing a lot of amazing work, And I think in the next 5 years to 10 years, we're going to see human beings definitely going back to the moon and on towards Mars.
You know if the asteroid mining companies are still making progress?
They're still working on it. Yeah, I think there are at least 2 or 3 of those. Yeah, there are 2 or 3 of them out there that are planning to mine the asteroid belt for minerals.
Okay, real quick, Guster, we'll get to you. Hyper, did you have something to say?
I just had a quick comment about the SpaceX. The first test of their big fucking rocket is a private mission that they're sending a bunch of astronauts with a Japanese billionaire to go past the moon, like next year.
Wow.
And they plan to land the
Next
rocket.
year.
They plan to land on Mars in 2022, without people, and 2 years later with people in 2024. It's kind of
my God.
very ambitious.
Exciting.
Wow.
That's so exciting. All right, Ghoster.
And Ghoster, do we need to repeat back for the stream or summarize what you're saying, or can they
I
hear
can
you?
turn on my mic.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So my prediction of 2019 is really not much is going to happen. There are going to be definitely some new rocket developments, especially with SpaceX and maybe Virgin Galactic and what was the other one? Blue. I forget. Blue Origin.
Is Virgin almost ready to send people in low Earth orbit? Like, how close is Virgin?
I believe they already had the spacecraft or the prototype of it, but it wasn't like fully
They
tested.
sold the
so
tickets years ago.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't think we will really have that big of like. There will be definitely a lot of innovations, but one of the bigger things is I predict that we're probably going to start talking about cleaning up the geostationary orbit more and more.
Oh, I hope
especially with all the stuff that we're putting up there.
I think it'll take an accident to really get people off their butts, like a big satellite destroyed or something.
Or even the first ever passenger launch goes awry because a piece of space junk pops a hole in its side and everybody dies of suffocation, something like that, where instant vacuum.
I think it might take something like that to really get people to spend money on this.
But I think...
What was that movie with Sandra Bullock?
And Interstellar, Gravity, yeah.
Gravity, yeah.
But I think this is going to be the year that, since we're now starting to get redabble back into space a lot, that question is going to be raised pretty heavily of, there's a lot of stuff already up there. There's thousands of dead satellites orbiting our Earth right now with over 1 billion different pieces and parts, floating around up there going hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour, waiting just for an accident or a event to happen where a active launch goes awry because they got hit. And we also, as in the Wall-E movie, don't want that to happen, where we have literally a covering of satellites, like a cloud over our planet. So I think that's going to be one of the big things.
Well, the movie Gravity, Gravity is based on a real effect, but I mean that process would take more like a decade than an afternoon. So I mean it's serious, but I mean it's the movie really exaggerated how long we'd have to respond to that, because in the movie we're in the dark in a single day. So that's one thing. It'll take a bit longer, but it's pretty bad.
I think with satellites as well, I think that one area that I'm really excited about is internet, satellite internet, which I don't know exactly like what. I know that there's some lower level orbit satellites and things like that Elon Musk has talked about putting up in internet companies. And I think, if we saw a paradigm shift, if Comcast, Verizon, or whatever, were all threatened by a new, effective, faster internet that can be deployed, and there's all of a sudden we're freed from that, we could see a huge increase in the competitiveness of the internet market, and maybe if we don't have to lay so many fiber optic cables, and that's not the method that we have to use to get people internet, that could really change things and level the playing field around the world with smartphones and those kinds of things. And Google's Project Balloon or whatever, where they do balloons with, so all these kinds of things that I categorize it as space a little bit with like increasing internet access and connectivity.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do we have any predictions though? Because a lot of this stuff sounds like it's kind of far ahead, not 2019. True. Does anyone have a 2019 prediction?
Yes.
Yes. Just on this subject, something that I just remembered is coming 5G is kind of a game changer with how fast it's going to make
5G?
wireless and get rid of cables, except it's
Yeah.
going to take a while to spread, but it's starting. So in the next year, we will see a little bit of 5G, and that can really change how we interact with the net. Or you don't,
Except I think
sorry?
Verizon has just decided to, or AT&T, I can't remember which one, has just decided to relabel their 4G as 5GE or some bullshit like that. So they're literally just calling it. It's like, oh, we have 5G. So yeah, it's a little bit, almost as bad as unlimited. But yeah,
We'll start to see the beginnings of this next whole thing this year.
Yes.
In a few phases.
I have a
Lucio?
prediction. Yeah,
Okay.
so I think that SpaceX is planning to send astronauts back up to the space station this year using their Falcon 9, because like the U.S. has been relying on the Russians to do that. So I think that's going to be one thing that happens. And also, like as Hypertectonic said, their BFR, their big. I think it's Big Falcon rocket technically, but they call it
That's not the real name.
That's the PR
They're
name.
building that right now, and it's really it's really huge. And I do think that the first they call them hopper tests is going to happen this year, where they send it's not the real thing going up to the moon, but they're going to send like a test flight that's gonna. It's going to be before the middle of this year, they're going to have that first launch. So I think that's going to happen. I don't know whether or not it would go up in flames, but at least I think their first test launch will happen.
I guess this category of topics though is kind of tough to do predictions for, because these things are planned so far in advance that if they're planning on doing something this year, they're planning it it's not necessarily a prediction.
That's a good point.
But thank you for the info.
They have pictures already of the things kind of all built already, halfway.
Cool.
Dark Kirby, did you have something as well?
I have
and then Hypertectonic? I don't know if you...
I have a short prediction, which will be people will be definitely more interested in space this year compared with
I hope so.
the past.
That would be cool.
Interest and awareness.
I've seen there's so much more awareness lately.
I think it was interesting the point before about the idea that that there's been these dips in popularity for concepts like VR had it and all that kind of stuff in space. And I think that's exciting to me because perhaps that's just a natural progression with any technology that humans discover. It's almost like creating fire. It's like, oh, we created this hot thing. But then there's this long gap of actually figuring out, oh, it can cook things and all
what can we do with it?
Right. So there's this discovering and realization of the technology, and then there's this whole other process that has to happen that seems like it might be a certain number of years, 20 years or something like that, of research and development that needs to go into actually realizing what the true potential might be. So maybe blockchain is another example where maybe it'll fade a little bit, but then in the future it'll kind of come back. Or it'll just stay a buzzword that startups love to say because it gets investors interested. Anyway, Rose Puffins?
Well, one of my predictions isn't necessarily to the advancement or what we're going to do with space, but the reaction to it. And I think flat earthers are going to fall out of their rockers on this year.
Oh boy, yes.
It's going to become a political issue.
Well, speaking of flat earthers and people who have different understandings of reality, I'm curious. Climate change.
I think we should talk about climate change and kind of just environmentalism in general, either changes that are happening to our planet, changes that are happening to the ecosystem, but also possibly changes that we're making, are recycling technologies getting better or worse? Or are we doing anything cool with our trash now that we weren't before? Is there anything that we're doing that's hopeful in any way? But I think, climate change, it's just going to get worse. There's no measures in place to stop the momentum of it, of what we're seeing and the changes that are taking place and the biological changes that are taking place. There was a snail recently that went extinct because they didn't find a mate for him, and so it died. I just saw that. I just saw that on Twitter. I think today or yesterday. The Hawaiian, one of the Hawaiian snails.
No.
So that was sad. Yeah.
Maybe it was live streamed.
And
Who knows?
I don't know.
Did they try
but,
mate it with other kinds of snails as a last ditch
there
effort?
was
He had a good
none
end to
left
his
of
life, if you know what I'm
species.
saying.
I don't think he was compatible with other snails that weren't of his species.
Yeah. And that's also part of the
Okay,
mass
well-
extinction that's happening. This idea that
Right.
many
Yeah, like
species.
this has happened with
going-
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of species over
Yeah.
the relatively recent history. So,
But I'm actually
that doesn't
excited
seem like
about
it's
this.
going to let up.
Yeah, I'm excited about this year because even though I'm worried about climate change and I feel like we're kind of a little bit doomed, I'm excited because I think the sooner that we all get on board with it and can invest money, like the Green New Deal kind of stuff or whatever that's being talked about, is like as we can invest in technology, just as we were just saying, it takes 10 to 20 years potentially for new technologies to be discovered and applied and stuff like that. So the sooner, and people are already working on this, but so I think 2019 would be a pretty, I think it's going to be a pivotal year that if we see the same kind of anomalies that we saw in 2018, again, that people will start to be like, oh, wow, things are changing. We really need to do something about this. And I think there will be a momentum that will grow. So
Yeah,
it might be a positive.
I hope so. I think a change will have to happen, though, because of its polarized nature, where it's attached to political sides than it is to like just an issue standing on its own. I would hope that maybe maybe it can separate and become not a partisan issue and can just become an issue, because like it's bigger than any of our agendas. It's bigger than any of our countries. It's a bigger problem. It's bigger than humanity. So like it needs to be extracted from the narrow political context it's viewed in.
And maybe that'll happen in 2019.
That would be great.
Potentially.
I would like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to comment on this. I think for you guys in the States and to help lead the world, I think you'll only really start making a lot of progress in 2020 when President Ocasio-Cortez starts bringing her Green New Deal across and gets more people on board.
Sorry, I'm not informed. What is it?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is my prediction for your next president. Or wait, I don't remember if you're in the States, and she will help push climate change. And that's my prediction.
She's not going to be old enough to run, I think, in 2020. But
wait, what's the age? There's an age limit? What is it?
30.
It's 35.
Man, 35?
Oh,
yeah.
so that's not no shot.
2024, she'll be, by inauguration, she'll be old enough. So
Yeah, well, you'll have some very progressive leaders, probably, or more progressive coming up. I think Trump, my prediction is Trump is going to be impeached, or the proceedings will start this year. And then next year, Pence will not do anything about climate change. But then, okay, I guess somebody else will have to take the initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. It's a thorny topic, and I mean, unpleasant in a lot of ways. But I hope you're right.
We'll escape to space.
Freeman?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this global catastrophe of us destroying our environment is a global thing. But in 2019, as much as I want the world to come together, I don't think 2019 is the year. Just keeping on topic, guys.
Sure.
Yeah. 2019 will not be the year for it. Well, simply because look at the world right now. We're so divided. I mean, there's
Sure, but that doesn't mean that we can't.
It's just even. Yeah,
in order for change to happen, little steps have to happen first, and so even if 2019 is not the year, then hopefully some progress will be made. Yeah. Although when it comes to environmental efforts, did I read recently that we the U.S. our recycling was sold to China for them to use, and now they're not purchasing it anymore, and so there's a recycling crisis. So that's not a step in the right direction.
Why'd they stop?
Yeah.
Because it was too contaminated, they're saying, but it's probably geopolitical as well. I mean, there's all sorts of.
I'm sure there's politics involved. I don't know any others.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, every country is trying to do the thing, in a like governmental stuff, like wide stuff, and people do it themselves, obviously. But I think ultimately, what it will take is a wake up call. People always say, "Oh, there's going to be a catastrophe that's going to happen from climate change," and so far we haven't seen anything that is happening, but slowly. And people, human beings, unless something that literally takes lives, kills people, and says, "Look, this is what happens." If it happens slowly, they just go, "Oh, it's okay. It's only a couple of people."
And it normalizes.
That's the problem, I think.
Yeah. That's,
I mean,
I think, an issue
thing.
with a lot of our privacy issues. I think are the same way. When they just incremental, changes, then it's the
if it's
it normalizes
slow,
things, but
it has no impact. But if it's big, then it has a big impact.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right, Lauricia.
I have a comment about the snail that you mentioned.
Okay.
And so it's not a prediction so much, but have you heard about the it's like the Human Genome Sequencing Project, but they're doing it now for the entire all biological organisms on Earth. So they've just launched. I think they're launching it in 2019. A project to sequence the genome of every living organism that we know of. So this is millions of people. Yeah,
that's an enormous undertaking.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like for a 10-year goal to do the whole thing, and then so if you have one of these species go extinct, at least we'll have their DNA. So
in case we're gonna clone them later.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe mammoths and dinosaurs will get to that point.
This is a modern
too.
Noah's Ark.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Hi again. Fun. I thought about this when you again mentioned the snail, that things can go extinct from bad climate, and then the things not having their proper environments and all that. The fun thing is the exact opposite can also happen, but it's just as bad. Because have you heard of the Japanese giant jellyfish?
Is this the one that's taking over? Like it's just multiplying to huge degrees.
It's multiplying, it's growing huge, and it's been very dangerous for the past few years to go fishing in certain areas of Japan, because these jellyfish have been getting caught on nets and lines and capsizing boats because they're bigger than the boats.
Wow. That's
I want to see a picture now.
but you're right.
Are they
Like part of
toxic?
the
Yes. Yes.
they're jellyfish. I mean,
well,
so stingy,
definitely.
right?
Oh,
yeah.
actually, I just remembered I saw, speaking of toxic and venomous, yes, they absolutely are. I saw a video of a shark that swam under one and came out the other side completely dead. Just one.
Oh man. Well, so that is an example of like when there's imbalances in the environment. Like some organisms die, and then the organisms that don't die are the ones that usually can proliferate in that environment. If you've ever heard of the red tide, it happens when there's a proliferation of algae because there's so many. I think it's like there's so much pollution and toxin in a diatoms, and there's so much the environment is so hostile to everything but those diatoms that they just become very plentiful, and then that entire area of water becomes toxic to anybody who goes in it. So so that's an example of something that can happen.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I guess climate, we might have more awareness, potentially, of things that are going wrong, and be able to address it and take the magnitude. We have. So I know we're a little bit over now, and we have. I guess we could choose. Well, one, I guess. So we have nanotechnology and stuff like that, and Internet of Things as well. So I don't know if anyone has any last predictions. Also, if anyone has any last predictions of what's going to happen in the next year, of anything that we haven't talked about or haven't mentioned. I mean, basically, we're going to write this down and in a year come back to it and see, you know, how on or off the mark we were.
Yeah,
So,
I think we can wrap
yes,
it up.
exactly.
The Internet of Things discussion, like that's things like smart devices and things like that, which I think is very similar to the autonomous cars discussion. At least I was going to bring up the hacking issue because they are extremely susceptible to hacking. It's very, very easy to hack your smart refrigerator, your smart toaster, your, you know, all of your smart devices. It's exceptionally easy to do that, and so those are kind of a known like security risk. And so I bet that's just going to get worse in 2019.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You think you'll be hacked by the end of this year?
Will you be hacked by the end of 2019?
Okay, yeah. Thumbs up or thumbs down
one.
if you think it's likely that
Yeah.
you'll have some kind of virus or hacking occur.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
will
it's
your
already happened to me.
will your
I'm gonna be
information be
optimistic and
exposed
say I can
in
prevent it.
2019? By the way, if you want to know whether your information has been made available to hackers before, you can go to
Cut myself off
haveibeenpwned.com
100%.
and put your email in, and they'll tell you if your email's been exposed to hackers through any website
So you
or
should put a poll
data breach.
on the Discord as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
we
good
do.
idea.
I like that. Okay, so basically, I've taken some notes on this, so I can just recap what our predictions are for 2019, I guess.
Sure.
So this is kind of a little bit disjointed, but so basically with AI, we think overall that it's going to be a positive impact on society over the next year. It may take a while to develop, but we're going to kind of, you know, potentially simple AIs will be combined into kind of networks and things like that. It's going to affect us less directly, as we saw from Microsoft and Twitter and things like that. And maybe for governance, we'd even see some people realize that that computers can be better than some of our ridiculous politicians. But autonomous cars, you know, probably not a fully autonomous car by the end of the year, but we're going to kind of see it continuing to develop. And interestingly, we might see like insurance start to change and pressure people into adopting some of those autonomous technologies. With climate change, we might see people becoming more aware as more catastrophes happen, or it might kind of be normalized and people might not respond as well. And space exploration, we kind of see the next 5 to 10 years, humans on the moon and working towards going to Mars, a much bigger increase in kind of like consumer space area where people might be able to buy tickets to go up. Asteroid mining companies are going to continue, potentially more
And the satellite internet.
Yes, with satellite internet and things like that. SpaceX will continue to evolve. And lastly, in 2019, you're probably going to get hacked. So, yeah, I think those are our predictions for 2019. But yeah.
All right, cool. So we'll save that. We'll wrap it up, and then we'll revisit it next year and see what happened.
Yeah, but thanks, guys. It's
that'll
fun to
be
like
fun.
come together as a consensus and try to figure out our future. So, but yeah, let's take a picture.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
What photo
and
time?
happy
Photo
2019.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, everyone,
Photo,
come
photo,
up to the stage and we'll take a photo.
Did you throw up? Yes. Yay.
That's nice music.
I'll have someone next to me. Here we go.
Jeez, I can't stand anywhere.
You were fine right there.
He was there. Oh.
Oh,
Hi.
Well.
Hey.
Right there.
Bjorn.
Right there. Oh.
Brennan.
Right. Hey, Rose. Go right there.
Okay.
Ah!
2019.
2019, 18,
Hold on.
17, 16.
2019.
2020.
2019.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Ooh.
Ooh, I like the confetti.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yay, okay.
We predicted the future.
All right, thanks
Our job
everyone.
is done.
Ooh.
We are the future.
Yes, we are
Yay.
experiencing the
Let's not fuck it
future.
up.
I actually just
Oh, wait,
thought of an-
wait. That was the
I
plan?
just thought of another subject that
I need to make some phone calls.
Yeah.
I need to make phone calls.
Employment.
Employment, like AI
Oh, yeah.
replacing jobs.
Yeah.
And what's gonna happen with that?
Oh gosh, what's in me?
Like,
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
people are
I
gonna.
found. Yeah.
I think it's gonna become
So-
a subject, like a publicly worrisome subject.
Buffalo
with
go
automation.
down.
You think it'll
Yep.
happen in 2019?
I'm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's because he
Okay,
came from
that's
the
all
future,
right.
bro.
I just sat down.
Yeah, you've
I
come
know.
from the
I saw-
future to call.
I saw one of these doom and gloom documentaries, and they're saying that the Earth's magnetism is coming
Yeah,
down.
thanks for
And they
showing up.
say
It was
that
good
every
to see
so
you
many
again.
million years,
Thanks for your
the poles
comments.
reverse, so the North Pole becomes the South Pole.
Oh
and so on
yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah. That's
And
scary.
So
yeah,
they
it was
figure
always
that's in the
fun.
process of
Thanks for,
happening.
But it could take a while. Like it's hard to.
Too loud.
Yeah, I always want to say more